Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio,
your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Oh, it's the holiday season. Welcome back to Rebel Force Radio. You know, we need to break out some of those great holiday-themed Star Wars tunes. We've been playing those for a long time over the years. In fact, as a reminder, if you go over to rebelforceradio.com and you just do a search for stocking, you're going to see all the Stocking Stuffer episodes. They're all available. So I know you're out and about shopping for someone special. It's a great way to pass the time in the car. Or maybe you're one of those you just like to put the headphones on in the mall. You know, and so, like that, don't bother me. You got the headphones on. But don't be that person that gets up to the cashier. And you're trying to do that, and you're like on your phone, you got the headphones in. Don't do that. It's a bad look. But maybe it's okay if you're listening to RFR Stocking Stuffers. We got a great show for you this week. Lots of stuff coming your way. The Bad Batch trailer, brand new trailer. We're going to be doing a breakdown of that. We'll go scene by scene. More Tony Gilroy. That's right. He's still talking about Andor, and so are we. Why shouldn't we? It was monumental, I think, in so many ways for Star Wars. So whether you were on the Andor train or not, there's a lot we can learn by listening to Tony Gilroy, and what does it mean for the future of Star Wars storytelling. Also, Mando Season 3 gets a premiere date. We've got that for you. And some news about Disney. They're cutting production in 2023. Bob Iger is back, and he's got his hatchet out, and he's making some cuts already. Plus, Jon Kasdan, co-screenwriter for Solo, reveals in a recent interview what he believes is Solo's biggest problem. Yeah, biggest problem with Solo. He's going to sound off. Plus Star Wars and pop culture and so much more. But first, introductions in order. If you're new to the program, my name is Jason, and with me, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Back in the saddle and ready to talk Star Wars. Ready to talk the wars with you. We got all kind of fun things happening coming up here this week on RFR. I'm really excited for the show this week. This is kind of our wrap up for Andor because the Batch is back. The Bad Batch is back in town, and we're prepping for their arrival. We're celebrating the New Year's with the Bad Batch. Don't leave Wrecker alone with the keg because he'll drain that sucker. There's a few things I want to wrap up with Andor. Like you said, Jason, that was just a great show. And I really have enjoyed thinking about Andor a lot lately. Yeah. Just thinking about it, it really had an impact on me. And I'm sure that there's going to be a binge coming up over the holiday season. Would relive Andor.
I think a lot of people are going to be doing that, Jim. I hope that, because going back and rewatching it all at once, I think will be a very different experience, a very cool experience. I haven't done it yet. There's people in my family that haven't watched it, so I'm hoping to sit them down and we can enjoy it all at once. So there might be a lot more people getting on that Andor train after the holidays.
Yeah, because it's all there. It's all bingeable, and it's probably an excellent show to binge all at once. Soak it all in. I'm not that type of guy who can sit there and watch like 3-4 episodes of the show after 2 of them, I want to watch something else. I just need to take a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But some people, they could just sit there and watch it. They could slam an entire season in one sitting. God,
I know people like that. I'd like to know how they have the time. I definitely have it doesn't bother me. I remember when I first discovered 24, and I was way late on the 24 train.
Yeah.
But when I first discovered that show, Stranger Things was another one, especially that first season. And all of a sudden I realized, oh God, I've watched 4 episodes, 5 hours has gone by.
You got bed sores.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with, I don't get bored with it, but I just find I don't have the time.
Well, yeah, there you go. But, as we're post Andor, also revisiting Rogue One is a lot of fun. Rogue One, because you definitely see it. There's a different perspective on that film now. Very present when you watch it. And Cassian, he's just a richer character now. He was really just a sidekick at best in Rogue One. But now that he has this whole backstory, wow, we really have gotten to know Cassian Andor really well. Oh, I have Rogue One trivia.
Rogue One
to kick
trivia.
Things off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought, well, it's interesting. This is going to be sort of a game everyone can play at home, and I want you to play, Swank, because you don't know the answer to this question here. But this is audio trivia. Mystery voice. Guess the mystery voice from Rogue One. Can you guess, Swank, who this uncredited cameo is from Rogue One? This is a voice-only cameo that you'll remember most likely from the film. It's not obscure, but I discovered who this person is just this week. I took the audio into the sound lab and cleaned it up to sort of strip away any music or sound effects or anything so we can really hear the clarity of the voice.
Okay.
So I made it easy for you. But it's a familiar voice.
All right.
To us.
And this is a new discovery, that this was not something that was talked about back when the film was originally released, or?
Well, I don't know when anyone talked about it, but I only care about it now.
Okay. All right. Because it's never been brought up before now.
Well, I never knew about it till now.
All right. Are we ready for it?
Let's hear the audio.
All right.
What's going on out there? That ship's off limits. No one's supposed to be on board until further instructions.
Yes, we are. Affirmative.
That's an impounded Imperial ship. What's your call sign, pilot?
Rogue One.
Rogue One? There is no Rogue One.
Can you recognize the voice? Can you identify that individual?
I got to hear it again. I got to hear this again.
Play it again.
What's going on out there? That ship's off limits. No one's supposed to be on board until further instructions.
Yes, we are. Affirmative.
That's an impounded Imperial ship. What's your call sign, pilot?
Rogue One.
Rogue One? There is no Rogue One.
Okay, I think I know who this is.
Yeah, you look like you I saw the light bulb go off over your head.
I think I know who this is. Is it Topher Grace?
No.
Is that too crazy?
Yes.
It's not Topher
Grace. I'll give you a clue. It's a voice that we've heard several times on RFR over the last few weeks, the last few months. We've heard this guy's voice.
Oh, is it Gilroy?
It's Tony Gilroy.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it one more time now that we know it's Tony Gilroy.
What's going on out there? That ship's off limits. No one's supposed to be on board until further instructions.
Yes, we are. Affirmative.
That's an impounded Imperial ship. What's your call sign, pilot?
Rogue One.
Rogue One? There is no Rogue One.
That is Tony Gilroy. Showrunner of Andor.
Okay.
And the guy who saved Rogue One, the film.
Yes.
I just discovered this information this week because, well, we were talking about what we want to binge over the holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to take a look at some of Tony Gilroy stuff. I never really gave the Bourne franchise a solid shot. I never saw Michael Clayton. these are films I want to take a look at. And these are the films most closely associated with Tony Gilroy, because I'm just so impressed with what he did with Andor.
Yeah.
And the more he does these interviews, the more I hear from him. I just like his take. I like his no BS approach. I find it very refreshing. And so I want to see more of this guy's stuff. So I was just looking up some info about him, random stuff, checking out the IMDb, what have you. And I see this uncredited voice cameo in Rogue One. I think it was like Rebel Technician or Rebel Radio Tech or something like that.
Rebel Force Radio Tech?
But it sent me, down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, within seconds, I got Rogue One up on the screen, and I'm determined to find Tony Gilroy's voice cameo in the film. And when I came across that moment there, as Bodhi Rook and Jin were in the cockpit of the E-Wing, get ready to
that Bodhi Rook
take off. What's that?
He's a very twitchy guy, that Bodhi Rook. I always forget about that until I, watch it or listen to a clip.
Yeah. There's like a ferret-like nature.
Yeah, he's very nervous.
Bodhi Rook. Yeah. But I think that's the result of Borg Gullet making him lose part of his mind.
That's true. We didn't see
it's all right
much
there in the dialogue.
We didn't see much of him before he got Borg Gullet. Did.
Yes. And
is that a verb now? To Borg Gullet?
Before he got gulleted. Before he got Borg Gulleted. Poor guy. But yeah, so Tony Gilroy, he was involved heavily in the reshoots and the re-edits and changes made to the dialogue and stuff along the way as they tweaked up Rogue One post Gareth Edwards.
And the ending of the movie.
Well, the entire ending of the movie. Yeah. But I'm starting to learn more and more about things that Gilroy was responsible for. And it kind of explains what some of the reshoots were all about. And you hear him because he references things in these interviews. And obviously, if his voiceover is in that part, when they're stealing the ship from Yavin, then, I should say stealing. They're making unauthorized use of the E-Wing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's Tony Gilroy, and he's coming over the intercom like that. I know there was another case in Rogue One where one of the producers, I can't remember which one, but he had the scratch track during post-production for the stormtrooper who approaches Cassian in K2 on Jeddah.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that moment when K2 slaps Cassian and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the stormtrooper, the voice of that stormtrooper, right, the voice of that stormtrooper is one of the producers on the show. And they just thought it sounded good, so they left it in. So probably the same case with Tony Gilroy. And especially since it was Tony Gilroy making a lot of those choices. If Tony liked the way he sounded delivering that stuff, then it was an easy choice for him to make.
Yeah, I have the feeling he's the kind of guy that when he walks on the set, it becomes his show. Gareth Edwards or no Gareth Edwards, it was Tony's show.
Yeah, that's right. So that's him in Rogue One, uncredited. Uncredited. He's that Rebel radio officer or whatever he is. Also, I just learned recently that the same goes for B2E emo, B2EMO.
Yeah, B2 emo. Yeah. Don't B2 emo.
I like when Marvin just calls him B. B.
Yeah.
B. Come rub my corns, B.
Oh, God.
Yes, Marva.
Oh.
Your feet are cold, Marva. Be quiet and rub them corns, B. That was an outtake. That was prior to Tony Gilroy joining the production. He had to rewrite that whole scene. But B2, his voice was again a scratch track that was used by the puppeteer, the guy who performs B2. I think he's the same guy who also operated the droid from the sequels. How Soon We Forget, The Ball.
Which one? But you're talking about BB-8?
Yeah. Another B. That was BB.
Yeah. Guys, remember when we started, there were only 6 movies, okay? When we started this this podcast, now we've got 9, 10, 11 features. We've got 6, 7 years of the Clone Wars. There's a lot more to recall, okay?
Well, I just was so concerned with the voice actor for B2. I was trying to Google it while I was talking, and I
saw that there was a story. I think it was on StarWars.com. They finally given this guy
complete
some
breakdown.
love. Yeah.
I couldn't remember BB-8.
Would we know who he is if you said his name? His
name is Dave Chapman. I was successful in my Google search, but unsuccessful in remembering BB-8's name while I was.
I'm so happy that it happens to you too, because it happens to me a lot.
More and more every day, Pally.
Bob,
new Star Wars content hitting us left and right. It's it's a challenge. But B2 Emo, that is Dave Chapman. Dave Chapman, accomplished puppeteer who's worked on multiple Star Wars films in the past. That's the voice of B2. They just thought it worked. And it does. It does. It's a very different kind of droid sound.
Yeah.
Very vulnerable sounding. Kind of pathetic a little bit.
Yeah.
Poor B2. But
he's kind of like the old
B2's
family.
a survivor.
The old family dog is what he sort of reminds me of.
You know, like I said, I was thinking about Andor. One of my thoughts was, B2, he didn't make it off Ferrix. But remember, there is a scene with him and Cassian there at the end when they're all on board that ship. B2 was there. He said, I didn't have time to even see you. Or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he does survive.
He does survive. Hopefully we'll see him in season 2. I mean, maybe we'll see him rolling around there on Yavin Base at some point. Wouldn't that be cool?
Wow. B2.
And we also know who else is walking around Yavin Base. A couple other droids that we know very well. Could we see
R2 and 3PO?
Yeah, R2 and 3PO.
Interaction between R2, 3PO, and B2. I don't know, I would love to see it. That would be great. That would be fan service, yes, but serve it up to us on a silver platter. And
it's fan service, but it's not, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. It's not like you got thousands of people there on Yavin Base. You got a few hundred, and you probably got several dozen droids working around on things. I mean, I think that's
right.
It sure makes more sense than seeing, Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba in Rogue One randomly on a,
That's very random.
Yeah.
It could work. It could definitely work. And 3PO, he was sussing out all the other droids there on the base, and he was checking them all out. There's a droid pool that we've heard of in the past too, where they, all the droids go to recharge and take oil baths or whatever, like a droid spa. And we saw a droid spa once on Clone Wars.
That's right.
So these droids are much more socialized than we think they are. They're very social droids.
And 3PO, he's got gossip on all of them too.
Oh yeah,
he was the gossip. He's like,
dish in the dirt.
There's that B2.
Yeah. Right,
Yeah, he's
B2.
new.
Did you hear? Oh, the new one?
He has a stutter.
Stutterer? Yeah. I heard he started a whole riot on Ferrix. What's he going to do here? Probably cause problems around here, too. Yeah.
That's the droid series that we'll never get,
Thank God. Well, what we do have, though, is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where anyone can go to visit. As a matter of fact, I want to thank our pal, Matt Rashid, who was out there with his family recently, and he sent me this cool little medallion from Galaxy's Edge, Rise of the Resistance medallion. Can you see it, Swank?
Oh, look at that. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Yeah. Is that what they give you if you survive? I should have.
Well, we went on the ride and nobody was giving us nothing.
No, I needed a medal after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, instead, we took you to the cantina for the third time that day.
Well, that's all the reward I need.
That was a great day. And Rise of the Resistance is a great ride. But everything in Galaxy's Edge is there to completely envelop you in the Star Wars universe, right?
Oh, yeah.
Very interactive, sending you on your own personal Star Wars adventure, even when you got to hit the can. And the bathroom.
The refresher.
Oh, yeah.
Let's keep it in universe.
But they do not call them, I don't think they call them refreshers at Galaxy's
I don't think they do either. Yeah.
Well,
we talked about that when we were there. I mean, I thought for sure they would point to the refresher back in the corner.
The refresher. Go get refreshed.
Yeah.
The bathrooms have a Star Wars vibe to them. And I got an email here from our friend of the show, Scott Rifen. Scott, who is a radio talk show host in Georgia. Scott writes to us and says he was at Galaxy's Edge and he noticed on previous visits that the audio in the restrooms was in universe. So they're piping in sounds into the
audio in the bathroom. You
Yeah.
can read that a lot of different ways. There's a lot of audio sometimes when you go into a public bathroom. I mean,
I swear to God, in that back stall, it sounds like an Aqualish is in there. You should believe me. I know. Okay, so in universe, no, he means they're piping in sounds,
like music
piping in sounds. Yeah,
music.
So you have something.
Okay, all right.
Well, I don't know what it is, but he sent me a recording. He says he noticed that there was a sports broadcast of some sort, but he couldn't make it out because everybody else in the bathroom was so loud.
Yeah.
Thank you. They didn't seem to care what the audio was, but as he was washing his hands, he found himself in there alone. So he fired up the MP3 player, the recorder, and held it up to the speaker, and he hung out in there until Mrs. Rifen started yelling and screaming for him to come out. What'd you do, fall in?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't wait too long or they'll think you're pooping.
But I want to hear this recording.
Okay.
I'll play it for you. Again, I took it into the sound lab and tried to clean it up as much as I could, tried to remove some rumble and other things, and tried to hear what this sportscast was all about. And then I can tell you a little bit about the sportscast, actually, before we hear the audio. I think that's a good idea. On StarWars.com, they talked to J.K. Kessler, who is the principal audio designer for Galaxy's Edge. And he was explaining how through the use of sound, through the speakers, they can really create a more immersive environment. Like you hear ships flying overhead from time to time. And there's also ambient noise, like the sound of a galactic radio station blaring a pod race intersped with in-universe commercials. So they create an environment of thousands of sounds and skits and things. So they say, listen closely when you're there, and you might hear it, and you might notice something you've never heard before. And so Rifen's in the bathroom. He's by himself in there, and all of a sudden he starts listening. Oh, my God, there's a whole thing going on. So I don't know where else they pipe this in throughout the park, but here's a little bit of that broadcast that Rifen was here. It's hard to hear, folks. I'll tell you that right now. But you can make out a few things.
What are you guys doing all of that? You're going to start the match or what? We're almost ready. They're just bringing the droids into the cage right now. Okay. Let's go, son. For your sake. Whoa! Nothing like getting threatened on a live broadcast, eh? Told you this would be exciting. Oh, yeah. That little guy doesn't look like he's long for this planet. But they say he's got a few surprises. Like how surprised he'll be going down in the first round, am I right? We're going to find out right now.
You said it, Zorzik.
So
Zorzik sounds like he's telling some jokes in Klingon.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really hard to make out. The joke at the end, I heard there are times when an alien language gets piped in there too, and they talk to people.
Was
other
this
people
commentary like during a race, or was this like a pre-race trash talk? Like they were talking to some of the drivers. It seemed like some of that one might be going on too.
It's difficult to put it into context.
I want to know
from what we have here. From
we get a Disney Plus series on this.
Rapin. Yeah, we need some better recordings of that. So I'm throwing that out there. Any RFR listeners, if you can get us some good recordings of some of these galactic radio station broadcasts going on throughout Galaxy's Edge, I'd love to hear them.
I'd love it if they put them on StarWars.com or some other website.
That'd be fun. That would be fun. But, they like to keep a lot of that stuff real exclusive to the parks. But, if you, with these Disney parks, if you look hard enough, you can find anything. You could find entire soundtracks for the Haunted Mansion, the voice, the thing they play in the Dune buggy. You can find recordings of all that stuff out there. So maybe that should come out and be more accessible to everyone.
Now, here's the question. Do they change it up? Or do you go into that bathroom and every hour you hear the same pod race?
No, I think it's, they said they created thousands of sounds and skits. Wow. Thousands.
Wow.
So, yeah, you'd be hard-pressed to hear the same thing if you can hear it at all. But it got me thinking, what would I like to hear if I'm in the bathroom at Galaxy's Edge, If I was in charge of the sounds you hear in the bathroom at Galaxy's Edge. I could keep it all in universe. There's no problem with that. So I created a little sample. This is my demo. And I'm pitching myself to the Disney company. If they want to go in this direction, think about it. We're in the bathroom, okay? We're not watching a pod race. We're in the bathroom. Let's stick with the theme.
Okay.
And we'll take it from there. So here's my demo.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Wait, what?
Well, that smells stinkerwith.
See?
Wait, did someone just give Boss Nass a swirly in there? That's what it's. That's what it sounded like to me.
That's the beautiful thing about this. It's all open to the individual restroom attendees, not attendant, by the way, which I think they should also put in the Galaxy's Edge bathrooms,
Yeah.
Put a reuse in there. Say, would you like a mint? Can I give you a towel? How about some cologne? I usually hate those guys when I see them in restaurants or nightclubs or what have you. But at Galaxy's Edge, I probably wouldn't come out of the bathroom for an hour and a half. I'd be in there talking to reuse.
You know what? I got to tell you, Jim, I got a confession to make. I never told you this before, but when we went to Galaxy's Edge, we went to the cantina, had a few drinks, and you can't own that stuff. It runs right through you. You can only borrow it. You got to go deposit it in the refresher. And I had to go there. And I did record my experience in that bathroom. And this is what I heard. No, this is what I heard when I used the bathroom at Galaxy's Edge.
Look at the size of that thing.
And so, say what you will.
Well played.
Everyone's experience is different.
Every experience is different.
Your mileage may vary. All right, I think we should go and listen to some voicemail after that. What do we say?
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Rebel Force Radio. This is Fletcher here from Maryland. First time calling in. Wanted to share a theory I had about Luthen in ANDOR. Shared this with a lot of other fans, and they always seem to keep shutting it down because they're seems to be this attitude of people not wanting Force and Jedi in Star Wars, which makes absolutely no sense. But anyway, here it is. I don't think Luthen is a Jedi, but what if he had a child that he gave up to the Jedi Order who was then killed during Order 66? We see his actions have a lot of emotional weight and a personal connection. The things that he's willing to do, it's almost more of an act of out of revenge at all costs. So what if he's doing all of this to get back at the Empire for killing his child? Even the kyber crystal he had might have belonged to his child in their lightsaber. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts and if you think this theory is all plausible. Bye.
Well, I love that theory. I love that you're finding a way, because we've all but debunked, I think, the notion that Luthen himself is a Jedi. But could there be a connection in some way? You know, could he have been in love with a Jedi? Perhaps. Could it have, you know, rather than a child, could it have been a romantic interest? There is something to be said, Jim, for the fact that he has this kyber crystal, although we know he's an antique dealer. You know, he specializes and deals in all of these goods and these unique pieces. But I agree with the caller in the sense that there does seem to be something deeply personal driving Luthen. What causes a person to, as he says in his great monologue, you know, essentially give up so much of life to dedicate it to a world that he'll never see. I think he says it's a sunrise he'll never live to see, and he knows that. It has to be deeply personal. And if we rule out him being a Jedi or linked to the Jedi in a direct way, is there room for a child or, you know, a romantic partner or something like that?
Yeah, it's a lot of food for thought. It's something I've been asking since mid-season. What is Luthen's motivation? What has pushed him to the extreme in the way he's been pushed? Now, with Saw Gerrera, we actually have a backstory for him with the separatists, the rise of the separatists on his planet, and that just forged him into a warrior and into someone who was definitely going to fight for the independence of the little man, the everyman. And we see that with Saw, and we also see the sacrifices that he had made along the way, or the losses he had occurred.
His own sister.
His own sister.
Mm-hmm.
Stella. Or it was Steela. I think it was Steela.
It was Steela, but yeah. I like the streetcar named Desire reference there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So Luthen, though, what's his prime motivation? What is Mon Mothma's prime motivation? Now, you could say, well, she sees the inner workings of the political landscape there on Coruscant, and she is recognizing people are losing their liberties and losing their independence, and individuality is going down the toilet. But I mean, what's really pushing her? I think Mon just got in too deep, too fast, and there was no way to back out due to pressures from Luthen, most likely. But what's Luthen? Luthen seems to be the guy. You know, he is ground zero for the organized rebellion, galactic alliance against the Empire.
Yeah.
So what has he seen that everyone else isn't seeing? Saw Gerrera said, what are you? You know, when he was talking about where does Luthen stand politically?
Right.
There could be a bigger bubble than that. He could be asking what he stands for politically, what he stands for morally, what he stands for ethically, what he stands for spiritually, religiously, a million different things. But Luthen response says, I'm a coward. That's what I am. I'm a coward because I'm afraid of what the Empire is doing and I want to stop them. But he calls himself a coward. And like, that's the last thing you expect Luthen to say, right?
Now, being afraid of your enemy doesn't make you a coward, especially if you're confronting them. I mean, I would say that
I think he fears unbridled power, the unlimited power that Palpatine is seeking. He sees it. How come he sees it so clearly and is willing to take a stand? What are the others missing?
Well, maybe he does have an understanding of the sort of the source of that power that's driving the Empire, that he knows that it's more than just militaristic. He knows that it's more than just, brute force, that there's something deeper, elusive, you might say.
Yes.
But the theory that is being posed here about, him maybe having a child that he gave up to the Jedi Order. I mean, I don't know for sure, but my understanding is that once you give up the child, first of all, you give them up at a very, very young age. And secondly, it's not like they send you, photos and they keep you don't keep tabs. You break all ties. There's no personal connection anymore. There's no attachment. Yeah.
Is severed. And that's really interesting. It does open up a bigger question about what you're talking about, Jason, and how restrictive the Jedi are on the Jedi Knights that served the Order and who were taken from their families as infants. How do the Jedi deal with that? How do the Jedi deal with inquiring families? They just don't pick up the phone? How do Jedi? I don't
think they have a phone there in the council chambers. In the Jedi Temple. What do they talk to the receptionist?
How do they deal with a Jedi who grows into adulthood, becomes a knight, and all of a sudden starts becoming naturally curious about the family ties and all that? How do they erase all of that? How do they manage all of that? It seems to be that, or it seems to me that there would be a lot of ways that the organization would get rocked by things from time to time, with Jedi wanting to know more about who they are, where they came from, etc. And they would go out seeking that. What's to stop them from going to find their family?
Yeah.
What's to stop them? I mean,
Count probably get a good talking
as a
to
Jedi. He reconnected with his family.
Yes.
But of course he slid to the dark side. So,
right.
But I don't know all the rules about all of that.
I think they have to get a lecture from Yoda when they start asking those questions. I think Yoda tries to set them straight. It's like being called into the principal's office, but he counsels them. Look at the way he counseled Anakin Skywalker and look at how that turned out. Prepare yourself to lose everything you love. I'm having nightmares, well, here's how you get rid of those nightmares. Stop caring.
That's just it. That's a pivotal scene as far as this conversation goes.
And say the same thing about parents, I'm sure.
So this opens up a whole can of worms. But of course, we know Andor is the Star Wars that is most distanced itself from this kind of lore to begin with. So, I mean, talking about the Jedi and Luthen, I'm beginning to believe is a very futile effort for anybody, any podcaster, fan, whoever, anybody who's even mildly interested in Star Wars.
And as we said, this storytelling is so straightforward.
Right.
There's not things lurking behind corners. There's no mystery boxes, as we said last week. It is what it is.
And for something to happen, it almost needs to happen on screen. The whole idea of Kino Loy, what happened to Kino Loy? A lot of people were assuming he died. But to Tony Gilroy, he said, no, we never saw him die. It's what we're seeing. It's all there in the story. Anything we're supposed to be thinking about is right in front of us when it comes to Andor. And then as Star Wars fans, we bring in all the knowledge of the Star Wars legacy and all the stories and everything. We bring all that with us. And that probably enriches it for us, But the story isn't reliant on that stuff. I think we should stop trying, It's like we're gonna be. It's like that prisoner who tries to claw his way out of the pit, and he just like wears his fingers down to the bone and doesn't go anywhere. So that's what I'm starting to feel like when it comes to Andor.
Yeah, there's something really refreshing about it being so literal that, that the story is exactly as it presents itself, and that you don't have to worry about a bunch of backstory or things happening in between episodes. There's not tons of exposition. It's all on screen, as you just said. And honestly, when you think about Star Wars in general, particularly the original trilogy, yes, there's the connection between Luke and Vader, and by extension, Leia. But beyond that, and that was monumental. It's a cornerstone of the saga and the mythology. But beyond that, what else has there been? Why do we always, and I'm including myself, why do we always as fans look for those connections? And that this person's related to that person, or this person becomes that other person, when in actuality, that doesn't happen very often in Star Wars.
No, it doesn't. But when it did the first time back in 1980... No, I am your father. Wow. That really established Star Wars is taking us to the next level outside of just the straightforward action adventure. There's twists, but now it's almost become sort of a gimmick to place the twist in there. And why did George Lucas put that twist in there? What was the motivation, the final motivation for why he did that? Well, maybe we'll talk about that next week on RFR. Maybe I'll dive into that. Try to get some clips from George. Twist? Yeah, let's do that. Next week, we'll talk about why George decided to make Darth Vader Luke's father. Because in the first draft, written by Lee Brackett, that reveal was not present. And George added that then after he largely rejected Lee's screenplay, and then she passed away. And so it was left to him to come up with the second draft, which George did. And that's when the twist appeared on the page. And then Lawrence Kasdan was brought in to tighten up George's second draft. And then we ended up with the film we see. But during filming, of course, Dave Prowse was told to say, no, Obi-Wan killed your father.
Right.
But I mean, that was just to maintain the secret. There was no.
Right. That was not a potential plot point, I don't think.
Maybe George was considering that. I mean, he had to have. I mean, those are the pieces on the playing board. And so he had to consider, what if Obi-Wan killed Luke's father, and he was lying to him the whole time? What kind of challenges does that present to the character? And he sits right, he thinks about it for a weekend, drink some wine with Coppola somewhere, and he comes back to it and he goes, wait a second. Would it be better if Darth Vader was Luke's father? Okay, let's run with that. Yeah, I'm gonna dig up some stuff. And we'll get to but if anyone has any suggestions about any sources I could tap into to hear George talk in his own words about why that change needed to be made to the story, because it was definitely not in play during A New Hope.
But
it was definitely not in play.
Has George ever admitted that it wasn't in play?
Yeah, I always attended it from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, George has written his own history in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a great deep dive. Let's see what we can find out.
Yeah, why not? That sounds fun. A little something to cleanse the palate between Andor and the Bad Batch coming next month. Before we roar into Christmas, could talk a little bit about that.
All right.
So, well, thank you very much. That was a great voicemail.
Yeah, no, it's great. Keep them coming. 708-320-1737, 708-3201-RFR. Or you can just record a voice memo and send it to show@rebelforceradio.com.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
All right, new trailer for the Bad Batch drop, plus the whole schedule. Yeah. The whole schedule, including episode titles. This is exciting. So we know it's going to be 16 episodes in season 2. Everything kicks off right after the new year, January 4th, with episodes 201, or season 2, episodes 1 and 2, Spoils of War and Ruins of War. So we'll get a twofer for its premiere. But we got a new trailer to look at. So without further ado, we should get into it. I have not seen this all the way through, so this is going to be fresh for me. So
awesome!
If you're ready, I'm ready.
I am ready, sir.
All right,
Let's see it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Here we go. So starting off at this tropical beach island. We've been seeing this. This is an environment I never thought we'd see in Star Wars. The crabs. Yeah, it's Mr. Crab and all the other little crabs chasing the Bad Batch down the shoreline. Cool. Yeah. But, like a beachfront was never anything I thought we'd see. A shoreline like this, what looks like to be tropical waters. I never thought we'd see that in Star Wars. And it showed up in Rogue One, Scarif, of course.
Yeah.
And then we had Andor visiting the beach there in the middle of season 1 when he went to Niamos. And here we are, the Bad Batch, getting some time. I hope Wrecker brought the SBF. And
Star Wars goes back to the beach.
Yeah, Tech uses SPF 75.
Oh, yeah.
And he is very, very fair skin. All the clones do, actually. But what about the planet? Where are they? What planet is this? It's not Scarif. I said Scarif, but it's not Scarif. It could be Wayland at the end of season 2. Remember, we saw the mountain fortress on Wayland where the Empire had a base there, and they ended up taking Tonwi, or was it Nalasay? It was one of those cloners was taken into custody after
I don't know. There's a lot of Bad Batch season 1 that is not stuck over the last
you gotta
year.
Watch
I gotta do a rewatch.
It's been a year and a half, so yes, definitely I recommend everyone do a rewatch on the Bad Batch.
All right, let's see what else we got.
Season 2 is coming.
All right, so so this is our hey, they got a new look. Got some new armor here for the second season.
Yeah, not too drastically different, but it looks like they've added some paint apps.
Yep.
Maybe a little more color.
Yeah.
I'm seeing
some of this might be
yellows, reds.
Some of this might be a device to make them more distinct when they're on screen together and wearing their helmets. Give them some color coding.
Mm-hmm. And also seeing the fact that they're battling other clone troopers. They're battling new stormtroopers, even Macquarie troopers. It's nice to have them look drastically different than those guys.
Right. Because, keeping in mind, this is, at the end of the day, this is geared towards kids, this animated series.
Yep. Kids of all ages. So crab attack, crab swims, Tech flies. That's the Marauder, their ship. Oh, there's now little Omega. She's got a new look. She's got a cap.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what she's got. In fact, let me look at this hat again. It looks very reminiscent of the hat that Leia wears on Endor. Actually, a number of the rebels have kind of a cap like that.
It does, kind of with the ear flaps.
Right.
And then she's using that bow and arrow, that laser bow and arrow of hers. And she seems like she's ready for action, I mean, watch this move. She jumps up on the back of a crab and then swings up on a rope. This is a different Omega than the one that was kind of being held back on the ship. And,
that hadn't seen grass in her life ever before, or solid ground. Yeah, she's really come into her own. I wonder how much time will have elapsed, or if they'll let us know how much time has elapsed between the two seasons.
Well, I think it's apparent that some time has elapsed.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Lucasfilm logo.
And those were like the Republic gunships.
rogue clones on the run
So
from
the Empire is still using Republic tech.
Well, now new character here that they meet in looks like in a bar or some sort of seedy underground place.
Yes, and that is Fee Genoa. Phee, Fee.
Okay.
And she's played by Wanda Sykes.
I knew it was Wanda Sykes.
Yeah.
I knew it. All right.
Yes.
So she's replacing the Rhea Perlman character from season 1, perhaps.
Well, I don't know if replacing is the right word, because we do see Rhea Perlman's character in here. Sid is in this trailer.
All right. I thought they moved on. All right. So Sid's still around, but we haven't seen her yet in this trailer. We've got Wanda Sykes' new character, Fee. Fee. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, look at Omega's hair back there. She's wearing it much differently now. It's a little longer, kind of parted to the side.
Yeah. Look at little Omega. She's growing up right in front of our eyes.
She really is. I'm gonna go on record and say I think it's been at least a year, maybe 2, since season 1, but at least a year.
I hope they make it clear to us,
Yeah.
Boy, it's been a year since we A year and a half even. Why don't you just do it in real time? Let's just say it's a year and a half later.
Hey, it worked for the Clone Wars. All right.
This is the top team. The rogue clones.
There's Wanda Sykes, Fee.
Huh? Hello.
All the Bad Batch.
Oh, juicy. The rogue clones.
Havoc Marauder. And who's that? There was an Imperial officer, and those are. That's an interesting looking stormtrooper too. Looks more like the Star Wars Rebels stormtrooper. So we're getting into
it's a very soft kind of look. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's just the style of the animation or it's an actual deviation from the design. But this is a bridge to getting to the stormtroopers. So this is more akin to what we see in Rebels. All righty. Yes. I don't know.
The thing I notice with the Rebels stormtroopers, why I'm usually able to differentiate them from other stormtroopers. At the bottom, like throughout the jawline, there's that like tube type of part of the helmet where you assume they can plug in some sort of breathing tubes in there if they're like flying around in space, right?
Yeah, right.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
On Rebels, it's fatter. The tubes are fatter. It's just a fatter tube.
Fat tubes.
So we got the fat tube stormtroopers from Star Wars Rebels coming to Bad Batch.
Got 2 tubes and fat tubes. All right, let's see what else comes up.
Should be doing more.
Oh, doing more about what?
Well, it looks like a giant creature here is emerging from lava or something.
Oh, God, is this the Zillow Beast? Return.
Well, that's worth considering. I mean, you can't really make out the features on that thing, but it looks like something from the front cover of a Ronnie James Dio album, like blended in with the Jurassic Park dinosaur.
It's got like a flat head, a couple of red eyes in the front, and the big beefy legs, like the back legs of a brontosaurus or something like that, and then these little back legs. So it's like a reverse Tyrannosaurus. Weird.
Nightmarish.
Yeah, coming out of, I don't know, a volcano, or maybe it's an explosion. Who knows?
Or a crash landing.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy. Doesn't look happy, whatever it is.
You want to really be free? Then
now they're on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, and the lights are off.
Unmistakable,
so maybe this is
that main, up there on the bridge with those iconic windows cut out.
Or it could just even be some sort of like tower, a control tower. We've seen similar Imperial designs in other places.
Andor, but it's got those recessed, that lower level where, they hang out on the
right
bridge.
Where
so,
the technicians are down there,
right,
they're hanging out. They're playing Pac-Man, they're whatever they do down there.
Yeah, well, it's a great way to get a nice view of Bosk's toes. If you remember Empire Strikes Back. You're right at toe level.
Yeah, that's where you want to be. Yeah, on the bridge, you don't want to be at throat level because Vader will dispatch of you. Yeah, has Vader ever force choked someone like where he's standing up high and then they're down low, and he's like, "I got your high ground now," and he's force choking the guy, just taking out all those years of anxiety and stress over that high ground moment.
I like to think so, but the answer is no. We've never seen him take out anybody in the lower level.
There's really important dialogue about specifically the clones that are still serving the Empire.
Okay.
Remember, there were clone troopers there. What became of the clone troopers? Yeah, our natural instinct was, well, they just morphed into stormtroopers. Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. There's more to this story, and some stuff gets revealed in dialogue here in this trailer that might reveal hints about what went down.
Rumors are more and more clones have been questioning the Order. Then they are traitors, like the Jedi.
All right, so more and more clones questioning the Order 66. I'm assuming that's what he's referring to. And we also knew at the end of season 1, though, and Jim, and throughout season 1, there was, talk about recruiting more conscripted troops. The clones, they age at an accelerated rate, and the cloning effort is done, is stopped. They're not creating any more clones at the time of the Bad Batch. So
yeah. At least the Kaminoans aren't. We don't know what the Empire's up to, or specifically Palpatine. Maybe Palpatine just hoards that technology for himself. And it's like, well, nobody's could be cloning anything. I'm going to clone myself.
Right. Yeah, it's very valuable and very dangerous technology and power to wield, especially, when you're in Palpatine's position. You certainly don't want an army of cloned Jedi or somebody to get that idea. He wants that. But there's also, I think, too, an aspect of he realized that the clones have some limitations.
And then you're also dealing with the middlemen, the Kaminoans. So, just clean up that whole line and just put it all under the Empire's guidance, and there can't be any mistakes because, the Kaminoans, they were sort of plotting also to protect their assets.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, there was nothing they can do.
Well, and they knew that their days were numbered and that they had outlived their usefulness to the Empire.
So there's a Trandoshan with a flamethrower. I've had dreams like this. Trandoshan with a flamethrower. This is a guy I'd like. I wonder if he does parties, maybe a 4th of July bash.
Slash and burn.
Yeah, but he's got a flamethrower and he's using it. And
you all gave up everything because of me.
You gave up everything because of me.
Growing pains with Omega. She is just a kid. Everything probably takes everything so seriously. And so she's lamenting the fact that there was some sacrifice made by the crew there for, her to rescue her, whatever for her. She's bummed out about that.
Because of me.
We made the right choice, Omega. But there are others out there who need our help.
Others out there that need our help. Yeah, well, who is that? Is he referring to other clones that need their help? Or is he talking about just, common folk throughout the galaxy? I mean, they are sort of like the Star Wars equivalent of the A-Team traveling around and helping those in need. So is this going to cement that mission, that becomes their mission? What was sort of a means to what they thought was an end, their freedom, go retire, find a way to disappear. I know that's one thing. They wanted to get away, but maybe they realized that there's still the fight is still going on. The war is still going on. It's just they're on a different side now.
Right. Now the A-Team stuff, it's fun and everything, but I really love the episodes that push the mythology forward, most notably the growth of the Empire and what's going on there and how they're oppressing the people, sort of like what we see in Andor, but we're seeing it through the perspective of former clone troopers who are fighting against their own brothers at times. But now it appears that the Order 66 programming might have a few bugs in it. And so some of those clones are starting to question that and finding themselves in the same spot that the Bad Batch found themselves in, going, hey, wait, we know this isn't right.
Well, I wondered about that because, the Order 66 trigger, it inspires an immediate reaction. Okay, kill Jedi. But how long does it last? It's one thing to essentially hypnotize someone, for lack of a better, comparison, and have them do something, in a moment. But what do they think about that a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a year later, 2 years later? So that's going to be interesting to see if that comes into play.
We might find that inhibitor chip isn't as long lasting as the Emperor would have liked. So yeah, maybe, as soon as the warranty wears out, that thing stops working.
Right.
I told you, he gets all mad at Masamita. I told you we should have got the extended warranty. Those damn Kamonians.
And the fact that they age, at an accelerated rate and all of that. I mean, I think, we talked about this a lot of times throughout our discussions about Bad Batch last year, was that this could be leading into some sort of genocide against the clones, wiping out the clones. Why did they need to wipe out the clones? Well, it wasn't just because they got old and were, drawing too much of that imperial pension. It was because they knew too much, or they started to ask questions. So let's get them out of here.
There you go. Yeah.
What sort of treachery is this?
Stay back!
Beck, I love Beck.
Gunji.
Whoa. Little Wookiee Jedi here.
Yeah, he's from the Clone Wars. You remember Gunji?
Yeah.
The young Jedi arc.
Gunji. You survived.
You survived. Gunji. Never thought I'd see you again. He's from season 5 of the Clone Wars.
Right.
Part of the young Jedi. Which they were all, the young Jedi.
That was a backdoor pilot.
That was a backdoor pilot. Exactly. They were being considered to be developed for a spin-off show of the Clone Wars. But of course, that all got abandoned because George Lucas lost interest and they sold the company to Disney. But you never know. I mean, there could be some research and development for that young Jedi show, and maybe some of that
he was probably pitching Iger on that. He's like, well, George, I don't know. You don't have anything in development. He's like, I got Gunji. He's great. He's everybody loves a Wookiee. It's a little Wookiee. He's got a lightsaber, laser sword.
Iger sitting there eating up the pitch.
Yeah, I love
that's
it,
a good
George.
pitch. I mean, it's not a bad pitch, really. Even if George delivered it word for word, just the way you said it, that would work. Sign me up.
Yeah.
How much money do you need?
Right. We would have been so easy, if George was selling selling Lucasfilm to us. Can you imagine? It's like, yes, we'll buy.
That
he doesn't have to
good.
say anything.
I see a lot of potential in that, George.
Gunji. Ooh, that one looks cool.
Was that pod racing?
Yeah.
Did we see pod racing?
Look at this.
Or was that just no, I
don't know, man. It's sure. I felt like it had that sound, that pod race engine sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not what it is. Those aren't pods.
All right.
It's more reminiscent of the chase with Obi-Wan and Zam Wessel.
Yeah, it looks like they're on Coruscant in the lower levels there.
Yeah.
Those screens. Oh, what's this? Is this that? Let me see if that's that same creature that we saw earlier. We got the red eyes. in the sort of the flat head. It's hard to make out. I don't know if it's that same creature coming out of the lava. It probably is.
That has to be it.
Yeah. Big teeth too.
We are not the enemy. The Empire seeks to establish peace.
Oh, whoa.
Right.
Look
Who
at
are these
that.
guys?
Yeah.
Who are these guys? They have very interesting looks. Their faces are covered up, all three of them. Yeah, one of them looks like he's wearing a pie tin on his head. The other one...
Right, we've seen those pie tin hats before.
Yeah. And the one has goggles and a face mask on. The other one has her... that looks like a female in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking Zam Wessel here, but I think I was just thinking about that race and Coruscant that you were talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's wearing purple.
The purple.
If that is, in fact, a female. And she's wearing a rank badge on her shoulder there of some sort. So she's somebody, maybe some ruler or something.
Yeah, it looks like they might be from a desert planet. They got with all those coverings to keep themselves from the elements. And then the eyes on the guy there on the right kind of reminds me of a Tusken Raider a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those goggles.
Yeah.
If you say Tusken, I see Tusken for sure. But he's not a Tusken.
No, not a Tusken. No, not a Tusken.
Peace and order throughout the galaxy.
So look at that. Did you see that stormtrooper right there? That looks like a Rebels era stormtrooper. That looks like still a New Republic Star Cruiser, not a Star Destroyer, not yet. Not New Republic, just Republic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You saw him at the end of Revenge of the Sith. They were there. They were in Revenge of the Sith. When Obi-Wan takes off to go on his mission to track down General Grievous, he takes off from one of those Star Destroyers. And we saw him plenty of times in the Clone Wars as well. So that's still the main ride for a lot of the Empire here. Look, that is, I'm telling you, that looks like
that's a Rebels era. Rebels. Yeah, that's a Rebels era stormtrooper. Because that line on the back, how it kind of is that flat line that goes across the back of the helmet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. So just trying to maintain consistent with other established aesthetics, in this case, anime.
And Rebels had a very unique look. I mean, it was very different from Clone Wars. So they're trying to merge. There's some things, Jim, that are like an actual design choice, and some things are, from kind of a utilitarian standpoint, and then some things not so much a design choice, but an aesthetic choice. The difference. There's a style to Clone Wars versus the style to Rebels, and so this is kind of bridging those two together.
The galaxy.
Peace.
And she pulls a blaster. Peace. I'm going to shoot your head off.
Yeah.
Okay. Your definition of peace is probably much different than mine. This must be the bizarro world.
Peace.
Oh, check it out. We're going back to the Senate.
Back to the Senate chambers. It looks like Emperor Palpatine is there in the center podium.
Making a rare appearance here.
He's got something to say. He's got something to say to people, because this would have to be a rarity, because Palpatine wasn't really known for his public appearances after the Clone Wars ended. He locked himself away and let all the bureaucrats and bootlickers run the show, because he didn't really care. He had power. He had ultimate power. What does he care?
Peace was never an option.
We're soldiers. We do it.
Yeah, Bail Organa.
Oh, yeah.
Bail?
Oh, missed that. Okay, there he is. All right.
That's Bail.
Organa.
We also caught a Masamita in there.
That line, peace was never an option. That reminds me of his speech in Revenge of the Sith. And then we shall have peace.
That ain't happening.
It's not what he was wanting.
We're soldiers. We do what needs to be done. Move. You know what makes us different? We make our own choices. What do you need, Rex? Any chance I could use you for a mission?
parents. The Bad Batch, new season, streaming January 4th, only on Disney+.
All right. Echo was there with Hunter, but we were hearing the voice of
Crosshair.
And so I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So they'll be having a discussion. But then it was like, oh, then it was Echo. So, sometimes the way they edit these trailers, the audio doesn't always match exactly what's happening in the video. And they're just kind of,
right.
It's a big remix, but I'm definitely excited, but it's hard to get excited, over this stuff when, as excited, we'll put it that way. Hard to get as excited, coming off the heels of something like Andor and Kenobi, which were very different from each other, but.
Yeah. And we're just filling time till Mandalorian season 3
let's
anyway. So that's the big event.
Right. Yeah.
There's a few big events coming in 2023, but I think the king of the hill is Mandalorian season 3. That's what everyone wants to see.
I should say that at the CCXP Comic-Con experience, there was no additional footage or no new footage shown of Mando. So the only new thing they got, in addition to hearing from Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Pedro Pascal, was this announcement that March 1st would be the premiere of season 3. That's right. The footage from the D23 Expo, that's still the last that we've seen, the most recent that we've seen.
There are rumors that there could be a Christmas week release of some Mandalorian footage, maybe the trailer. That does kind of sync
another
up.
Trailer around the holidays?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
It could happen. It's a little ways away, it's 2 months out from the premiere, but it is one of the biggest shows on TV, one of the biggest streaming shows. Probably the most popular Star Wars streaming show. I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think there might be a little extra muscle thrown behind it to hype it up and drive those all-important subscribers to Disney+. We'll see how that pays off.
Yeah. We mentioned Solo a little bit ago, and Jon Kasdan, who's the creator and the showrunner of the Willow series, which I have yet to see. Have you watched any of that yet?
I watched the first 2 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, and what do you think?
I'm with it. I'm going to watch episode 3, and I want to go and rewatch the movie now.
Yeah.
As soon as the first episode ended, I was ready to watch the second one. And,
That's
I'm
a good
the guy
sign.
who doesn't like to stream. I'm not the binger guy, but I did in one sitting watch the first 2 episodes.
Well, the original movie came out in '88. We were talking about reigniting franchises. So, I mean, talk about it laying dormant. That's 35 years that
right.
Sat there, and for it to be resuscitated. But obviously Disney Plus. I mean, look, Willow has always been sort of an estranged, relative to Star Wars with, coming from the mind of George Lucas and, him creating a whole new world of fantasy for Ron Howard to helm. So it makes sense that it could ride the coattails of, Lucasfilm. And of course, we've got new Indiana Jones and all of that. But it's an interesting choice. I haven't watched it. I intend to. But anyway, then getting back to Jon Kasdan, he talked to the Hollywood Reporter. And if you are following Willow, you should check out this interview because he talks a lot about Mad Mardigan. And no spoilers, but does address the Mad Mardigan question. But what's more interesting to us here on Rebel Force Radio is he does talk about the Solo movie. And Brian Davids, who does the interview, says, I'm a big fan of Solo, and I've been wanting to run a theory by you for years. Was Kira the one who was leaking intel, such as the train heist, to Enfys Nest in the hopes of freeing herself from Crimson Dawn or grabbing power from Dryden Voss? So, the train heist was, they gave them up, so they had a snitch in the organization. So he's asking, was it Kira? The answer that Kasdan says is pretty revealing. He goes, well, it's a great theory. It was not what we were thinking exactly, but I'll tell you the biggest problem that has always haunted me about Solo. Are you ready for this?
Oh,
this is the biggest
he's
problem.
narrowed it down. I think it's amazing. It's amazing he's narrowed it down, but I can't wait to hear what he's got.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with Solo. I can't wait to hear what it is.
He goes, I'm going to reveal the writer's nightmare right now.
Okay.
If Dryden Voss is so concerned about exposing his gang in the Kessel heist, why does he send his most trusted aide, Kira, to be the most visible member of the team that steals the coaxium? It seems to me that he's going to have to kill her almost immediately just to separate himself from that job. So it always drove me crazy, and it was a problem that I was eager to retcon in a sequel.
That is the problem.
That's the problem with with the Solo movie.
It's not the fact that they just shoved Darth Maul in there after film goers saw him get killed at the end of The Phantom Menace. They just shoved him in there without any explanation. But his biggest problem.
Hey, the biggest problem is the plot hole. That honestly, I never gave it any consideration. I just
me neither. But when you think about it, he's onto something.
Yeah, sure.
He's absolutely right because, okay, so let me see if I got this right. Dryden Voss he wanted to kill Han, Chewie, and Beckett because they screwed up the train heist.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently Kira had tipped off Enfys Nest about the train heist. That part
that's a theory. That's a theory that the guy interviewing Kasdan throws at him. It says, "Well,
that's just confusing things."
Right.
That was never.
And he says no. He goes, "That's a nice theory, but no, that was not the idea."
Yeah. All right, so
he says it's worse than that.
They go to see Dryden Voss.
Yeah,
and they say we can get this unrefined coaxium from Kessel. But Dryden Voss says no way, because Crimson Dawn has some sort of shaky alliance with the people who run Kessel, who are the Pikes. The Pikes run Kessel. So Dryden doesn't want to cross them because Crimson Dawn has some uneasy alliance with them.
Mm-hmm.
So if Voss's crew steals the coaxium from them, it would be seen as an act of war. But Han says, hey, it's okay if me, Chewie, and Tobias go raid that place because we have no connection to Crimson Dawn whatsoever. So it's cool. And so then Voss says, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll fly right under the radar. But Kira, you're going with them because I don't trust these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Kira's like, what? And she seems shocked, right? He's like, you're going, and just out of the, but so that's what I don't understand. I didn't realize Kira was such a visible member of the Crimson Dawn, you know? I thought she was just Dryden Voss's girl, you know? All the Bond villains have a girl.
Right.
All the Batman villains have a girl. I thought Kira was simply that.
Right.
I do know, though, that when they're walking out of the room, Dryden Voss says to him, he goes, if you fail me again, we're all out of options. And you think he's addressing Han, Chewie, and Tobias. But it's Kira. It's Kira who seems to react to that. Like, oh, yeah, not like that. But, you know, there's something about her where she's like, oh, he's talking to me. Yeah. So maybe that was the plan. He was going to kill her anyway, because maybe she was like working behind his back with Darth Maul or something. I read somewhere Darth Maul trained Kira how to fight. Is that true?
God,
I don't understand any of that stuff.
I don't know either. And I didn't, you know, there was a lot of that. I just didn't pick up on it, you know, and I've seen the film multiple times, but But
he's right. I had always assumed that Dryden Voss had sent Kira with Han, Chewie, and Tobias because he didn't trust them.
Right, yeah.
And he wanted her to keep tabs on them.
Right. So
but it is true then. But that blows the whole concept of the raid out of the water, because the guys who could pull it off were the guys who were not associated with Crimson. So, Kasdan is right. This is a plot hole. It's it could be revised with a sequel, where it's like, yeah, Voss wanted to kill me all along. That's all you need to say.
Right. Yeah. But that's not really, if I'm thinking about all the reasons why I might want or not want a Solo sequel, that's not up there. That's not in the top 30. Yeah.
Okay, but you know what? That is food for thought, though. That is just another reason why the Solo movie is kind of wonky.
Yeah.
It's just, but like I said, it's just yet another reason in a long list of them. But that it's the one that kind of gnaws at Kasdan, and filmmakers, they get bothered by things. George couldn't live with the original Star Wars. He had to dump several $1 million into that film just to be able to live with it.
Right.
20 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. But it seems to me that's, you would think that they would have had that part. He'd have had that part mapped out. You got to know your character's motivations at all times. It just.
Well, Dryden Voss went through probably the most drastic changes.
Yes.
In between the Phil Lord version, Lord and Miller version, and the Kasdan version. It was Dryden Voss who went through the biggest changes. He was supposed to be some weird CGI creature, played by Michael K. Williams, the late Michael K. Williams. And so when the production got halted by Lucasfilm, with about 75% of the work done, and they decided to revamp the entire Solo film, that's when the change was made. And Paul Bettany, Johnny Depp's party pal, Paul Bettany was brought in. And I'm not just saying that randomly. If you watch the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trials from over the summer, it's there's some messy Paul Bettany involvement in there. Dryden Voss, man. Yeah, there's a whole side to him. There's a whole side to the vision.
Life imitates art sometimes. All right. So there you have it. The biggest problem with Solo, we finally got to the bottom of it, courtesy of Jon Kasdan.
Finally, yeah.
Yes.
We've narrowed it down.
Yeah, after much debate. All right. Stock market is reacting to some announcements coming out of Disney. Of course, the return of Bob Iger has been heralded as, great news by a lot of people. And then some are saying, well, it sounds to me like it could just be business as usual. Bob Iger was still chairman of the board 2 years into Bob Chapek's 3-year reign as CEO. But there is some debate as to how much, influence he actually had. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, I think a lot of, of Chapek's problems was not necessarily about the creative direction of the company. It seemed to me that it was much more about budgets, the financial end of things, the distribution, creating layers of bureaucracy between the creators and the decision of where the content would end up, so that they didn't know what they were making. Were they making something, to be seen in a movie theater? Or were they making something to be streamed on Disney Plus? Sometimes even the actors didn't know, looking at you, Scarlett Johansson.
In all fairness, let's not forget all the movie theaters were closed, and a lot of people were afraid to go to the movie theaters. It was just seemed like the best bet for a weird time in human history when business was closed. All business was closed and we all had to stay home. So what else are we going to do but stay home and make a superstar out of the Tiger King and things like that,
Right. But one of the things that was announced by Disney in their quarterly report is that there is going to be a downsizing of content, of production. So in fiscal 2023, according to the document, Disney says that they will produce approximately 40 titles. Now, when you say titles, that includes films episodic television programs, not individual episodes, but various films and series for distribution theatrically and or on the DTC platforms. That could be the cable channel. That could be the Disney Plus streaming. But to put it in perspective, 2022's report set a goal of 50 titles. So we're looking at a 20% drop in production. So Marvel and Star Wars in the last 2 years, obviously they've released several films on the Marvel end, and then of course on the Star Wars end, several series titles. So the question is, will this 20% decrease of produced content affect or impact Star Wars, and to what degree? So we know that Iger's coming in there and he's going to, prioritize. Bob, he's not afraid to get in with the creatives, making big decisions about what gets produced, what doesn't get produced. But the only thing that, as we look to 2023, Jim, a lot of it's in the can. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't cancel things that have already been shot. We know from Warner Brothers, look what they did with the Batgirl movie. Look what they, that seems out of step for Disney. I mean, that might be something that Warner is willing to do. I don't see Disney taking something that's been shot, like an Ahsoka, or is in the midst of being shot, like an Andor season 2, and deciding, nope, we're cutting this. It's not happening.
No.
So I think Star Wars content is pretty safe, at least of what we know is coming.
Totally.
But you got to, Acolyte is also in front of cameras. The new series, what is the Stranger Things with Jude Law? What is that?
Oh, Skeleton Crew.
That's also is that in front of cameras now?
Oh, it's already been shot. I think it's in the can.
The whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, they shot that over the summer.
So I think Star Wars is safe. I can't speak for Marvel, but I think Star Wars is safe.
Oh, I mean, what makes the big bucks for Disney these days? It's Star Wars, it's Marvel, it's Pixar. Think of all the studios that is under the Disney umbrella right now. You have 20th Century Fox, you have Searchlight, you have Fox Star, you have Buena Vista International, you have Walt Disney Pictures, you have those studios all making movies.
But they're not making money. That's the problem. At least not what they not.
So that's where I think the hatchet's going to fall. I don't think it's going to happen on, especially things under production like the Star Wars titles you mentioned. And I don't think the Marvel films are any danger of getting canceled either. What's going on over at Warner Brothers is unprecedented and a panicky move made possible via very favorable insurance policies. All right. I'm sure that the Disney Corporation has all those mechanics set in place already anyway, and they could utilize it or abuse it like I think Warner Brothers is doing. You commit, man, commit. These films have already been shot, they're in post-production. You're canceling them? That's a real douchey move. No matter how you cut it, you're hurting the fans. You're hurting. You're hurting the creatives.
Yeah, but if it's garbage, if it's not good, and if it is also contradicting the direction that they want to go, I'm certainly not going to defend Zaslav over there at Warner. I don't know enough. About the direction. I don't think anyone really knows the direction that he's going, other than the fact that he hired James Gunn to handle the DCEU over there and to likely hopefully align it so that it can have, the same kind of impact that Marvel has. I mean, obviously they have much more iconic characters, or at least they did up until, the Marvel sort of took off in the way that it did in the films. I mean, you can't get bigger than Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. I mean, they're still the biggest, most popular superheroes in the world. So I think that in that case, it indicates a change in direction. But with Star Wars, so are you suggesting that it's not going to be the Marvel stuff, it's not going to be the Star Wars stuff, it's going to be Moana 2, although that's probably a bad example because Moana did really, really well. But what was that movie that was out just a couple weeks ago? And it tanked, did terrible.
The thing that they released, and they did a poor job.
Strange World or something like that.
It came out, it flopped.
Which is.
But, it's just like how much mojo is the Disney company going to throw behind like Diary of the Wimpy Kid as a franchise, or Raya in the Dragon, things like that.
Yeah, right.
How much mojo are they going to? Now that's where I think they'll be like, the Raya and the Last Dragon sequel we're going to do. Maybe we're going to put the kibosh on that or something, but I don't see them going after Star Wars or Marvel or something because, number one, the wrath of the fan bases alone is something that Disney has proven they're very reactionary toward. And they know the what storm that would hit them if all of a sudden they announce that, Ahsoka. No, our insurance policy is going to cover us on this. We'll take a little hit, but forget about it. And, it's really shocking.
Or even Andor season 2, which did not have the big numbers, did not increase the subscriptions. What are the odds that they could say, not so much?
I think, I just think slim to none. Yeah. I really do. I don't see Iger throwing that away. I think he'd be looking at things more like what's 20th Century Studios doing, It's like, how much more money are we going to throw behind Bob's Burgers, the movie? Things like that. Maybe he'll second guess. And I'm just throwing out random examples here. I don't mean to even judge these things or anything like that.
So there's lower hanging fruit than Star Wars and Marvel is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's so many different things that are under production. So many things that are happening. I just hope they don't touch the Haunted Mansion movie. I want to see that. I really want to see that. I was not satisfied with the Eddie Murphy version from several years ago. I want to see a different take on the Haunted Mansion movie. I think the things that have been announced are safe, and there's been a lot of things announced. The only things that aren't safe are the announcements for untitled Star Wars films, which are scheduled to hit first one December 19th, 2025, the second one December 17th, 2027. And I don't think it has anything to do with cost cutting at Disney. I think it's Lucasfilm getting their act together and actually being able to produce a film to fill those release dates.
Right.
And I hope that happens very soon. We have Taika Waititi. We have Damon Lindelof. There's always been that Knights of the Old Republic movie rumor that's been going around. It was being developed a few years ago. There's so many different directions they can go in. A Mandalorian movie. Why not?
Yeah. And when they talk about 2023 seeing 20% less production, it doesn't, I'm reminding myself, this isn't about what we're going to see in 2023. This is what's going to be produced in 2023. So the cuts that are going to happen in 2023, we're likely not going to see the results of those until 2024, 2025 is the production cycle of these things.
You got it.
All right, let's get to Tony Gilroy. We've got some more audio from him. Who's he talking to this week, Jim?
Tony, he's talking Entertainment Weekly again.
All right.
And, we'll just burn through these things. We've really talked about Andor to death at this point, but there's just some interesting comments here I wanted to isolate and bring to you guys. Most notably, the thing that a lot of Star Wars fans talked about were the missing Star Wars elements from Andor. No Jedi, no lightsabers, no mention of the Force, no aliens. No, everything was different. And so Gilroy, in essence, kind of removed the fantasy element from Andor to give us a very real and gritty story. And he addresses that a little bit in this interview with Entertainment Weekly on why he decided to go in that direction.
Well, they've done all that. That's one thing. I don't want to do something that somebody did already. I mean, that's literally where I start. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like, well, if we can't do something different, then let's not do it. Now, obviously, you can't reinvent everything, but that's literally where I start everything. And then I don't think most of the beings, creatures, humans, or otherwise in that galaxy have ever seen a lightsaber. I don't think that they know what any of that stuff is. Most people don't have any idea that there's a royal family or that this stuff is going on. It doesn't concern them. They're trying to do their lives and they're trying to do things. And, unfortunately, Lucasfilm and Kathy Kennedy and Disney by association are, we're really interested in opening a really new lane. If it works, it's not just our show is a new thing. It also opens the possibilities to all kinds of other things.
Well, and that's a very close to what we talked about. How can all these things exist in the same universe? Well, how can you have people eating on gold plates and with solid gold silverware, and another part of the world you've got children starving that haven't had a meal in days? It's very, very different perspectives. So you can have big perspectives. And then when you have, or a lot of different perspectives, and you have something as vast as Star Wars across an entire galaxy, you're going to get a lot of different points of view. And I like what Gilroy is saying here. I also appreciate that he acknowledges that you can't reinvent everything. And that's the thing. So that's why I keep hoping that we will see him continue to infuse a little bit more of these things as we get closer and closer to the events of Rogue One. We've known for a while that the idea that George had is that a lot of this stuff, or it seems he's kind of gone back and forth, is that, it's not like at one point the Jedi weren't necessarily front page headline news. But he kind of contradicted himself a little bit with episode 3 and the Clone Wars. He went on to say that these characters became folk heroes to the galaxy. So there's really two different ways that you can take this stuff. And I think George himself has been on both sides of it. Either the Jedi is sort of this mysterious brotherhood of monk-like figures, or, they're modern day celebrities.
Right. Yeah. The very beginning of the Revenge of the Sith novel talked about the media coverage of the Clone Wars and how everyone across the galaxy knew the names Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. And I was always a little uncomfortable with that notion that these guys were media darlings or something. That makes it a little too real world for me, and I don't care for that. I never liked any sort of fictional story that incorporated media coverage into it, despite the fact that I work in media coverage for a living and have for 30 years. Well, I don't want to see it encroach my entertainment like that.
But beyond that, I mean, he gives this galactic address at the end of Revenge of the Sith, or towards the end of Revenge of the Sith, and blames it all on the Jedi, that the Jedi tried to betray the Republic. And so this would make them major, I mean, not maybe down to the individual, but it would certainly make the Jedi Order a major political or factor in what he's making this major address. So
yeah,
I don't know that they don't know who the Jedi are.
One of the biggest flaws with the Republic was they became dependent on the Jedi. And that's what made them soft and easy for Palpatine to go in there and mess with. So their dependency, they want the Jedi to figure out all their problems. Oh, there's a problem with the Separatists in the Naboo system? Send the Jedi. Right. They'll go negotiate a reasonable conclusion to that conflict. And so,
keepers of the
then
peace.
What are your politicians even doing? What are your lawmakers even doing anymore? If you're just leaning on this order of monks, space monks, to go out and settle the conflicts.
Well, they're creating the problems that the Jedi have to go and mop up. That's what the politicians are doing,
Okay, fair enough.
But does Gilroy's, the more we talk about this, right, does Gilroy's idea despite it being embraced by Lucasfilm and Disney, this idea that the Jedi and this other side of what's going on in Star Wars doesn't resonate or, ring true with the average citizen of the galaxy.
Well, I mean, Luke himself seemed pretty confused about what the Jedi Knights were and all of that when Ben Kenobi was giving him the lowdown on the Force. Luke didn't even know what the Force was. So, yeah, you get that notion that the everyman in the galaxy doesn't really have much of a notion as to what's going on with these Jedi, even if he knows who they are or what they do. So I tend to agree with that. Now, to base your whole series and have that as an underlying theme for everything, to keep it gritty, real, and human, I mean, how can Star Wars possibly sustain itself on that? I think this is just another experiment, Ever since Disney bought Star Wars, they haven't really known what they wanted to do with it. And so we have been sitting front row. We have front row seats for all of these experiments that they're performing on our beloved franchise to see what works with audiences in the 2020s. It's kind of interesting. I mean, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm all on board for this. Where are we going to go? Let's go outside the box. Let's go to some different territory. And then other times I feel like, hey, are you treating me like some kind of lab rat or something? What are you trying to
go back?
When they put they dropped the adult language into Andor, which we've talked about extensively. They put the adult language in there. They did it in episode 3 when they had Sergeant Hosk say S, drop the S bomb there. And what was that for? Was that for Star Wars, or was that just an experiment to see if they could get away with dropping adult language into a Star Wars show? I think it's an experiment. So in that case, we're the lab rats, right? How far is Lucasfilm willing to push that? Well, pretty far, because they wanted Marva to say F the Empire. By the way, somebody told me that they're fans of a show that she's in, and to hear her drop the F-bomb would be par for the course for that actress, right. Fiona Shaw.
So she's no stranger to the F -- word.
Right. Yeah, not at all. As a matter of fact, what is that show that she's in? Because maybe it might be worth our while to scrub through some episodes of that to hear Marva cursing up a storm, I think somebody on Patreon may have told me that. Probably, yeah. And I want to share that with everyone. So I'm looking. Oh yes, this is from Orange County Carlos. Orange County Carlos, who says, having already seen Fiona Shaw in a show called Killing Eve, I can definitely hear her saying F the Empire. So apparently in the show Killing Eve, Fiona Shaw, Marva Andor, curses up a storm. We have a foul-mouthed daughter of Ferrix. Okay. So Fiona Shaw. So what is that? We're lab rats. Like, ooh, how did they react to Sergeant Hosk saying S? Well, I don't know. Wait till they hear the F at the end of the season. Oh, but Disney says, no way, Jose, you can't do that. And so it's all a big experiment. There's no style guide for Star Wars. They still are just throwing anything up against the wall to see what sticks. In the name of variety, that's a good thing. But in reality, this makes me lose confidence in Lucasfilm again because they don't know what they want to do with Star Wars. And they're just trying to figure it out. The only ones who know exactly what to do with Star Wars are Favs and Filones. Those guys know what to do. And they're taking their cue from George Lucas. Everything else is up for grabs. Anything goes, And how well can other filmmakers do it? Well, Deborah Chow, that Kenobi series, that was heavily criticized. So I think hardcore Star Wars fans were looking for something different there. Robert Rodriguez, very mixed as well in the reviews for that show from hardcore fans. So what are these guys missing that Favreau and Filoni are getting right? I mean, heck, even Favreau and Filoni were involved in the Boba Fett show. And Filoni was definitely an advisor on the Kenobi show. So what's going wrong here?
Well, I think
Why
they're
does
giving
it
some of these
work
people, I think
sometimes?
they're giving people like Chow and Rodriguez too much control. That's what I think.
Maybe.
You know, I mean, it's one thing to be an advisor. It's one thing to consult. It's another thing to be running the show and having, overseeing the writing of the episodes. And, you put Deborah Chow in charge of that. And if she's, she might be very, very capable, in terms of her functionality, but does she have the knowledge of the property of the franchise to be able to recognize when things are, going in a weird direction? So
and that's very deep water as far as the franchise goes. With Andor, there's a lot of that's shallow water. You could do whatever you want in shallow water. You can flop around, jump around. Odds are you're not going to drown.
No one's going to drown. Yeah.
Odds are you're not going to drown. So Gilroy's in the kiddie pool, splashing around, having a ball. Meanwhile, Deborah Chow is in the deep end, struggling for her life. So you have to choose. Tony Gilroy talks about Mon Mothma, who is she's emerged as a lot of people's favorite character from Andor. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact she is a legacy character. But I also believe it has to do with Gilroy has taken this legacy character and given her this edge that I never anticipated from Mon Mothma. I think back to 1983, the first time I saw her on board that Mon Cal cruiser. And I never imagined that her story was as complex, but there was always something behind the character, something that gave her the quality where you could sense the loss.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about dead Bothans. Okay. So here's Tony Gilroy talking about Mon Mothma and why she has it the worst out of all the characters who are fighting against the Empire. Mon Mothma is on the slipperiest slope of them all.
Mon has arguably the hardest road of any character in the show, because everything she has to do is under glass. Everything is observed. She has no place to hide. She can't shoot a gun or go jump off a cliff or blow something up. She has no cathartic physical way to escape from the trap that she's in. And, I don't know. Just go be her in that moment and consider all the various possibilities. Because if she goes down, what happens to her family then? And she's every decision that she has is tough. And it's assuaged in a very, hopefully interesting and weird way by the fact that her daughter is becoming sort of orthodox, old school Chandrillin and going back to these old ways and confusing everything. And then imagine how that makes her feel. Because you feel like, oh my God, we spent all this time escaping from all that. And, if I'd been a better parent, would she not be doing that? Why is she doing this? And, and the delusion that you can control your children and the swarm of anxieties that she has. I'm sympathetic to, there isn't a character in the show that I'm not sympathetic for, just every single one of them, but I have to be. But when I put her on, it's very uncomfortable. She just really, she doesn't have a lot of good choices.
Well, I think that she kind of lucked out with her daughter, becoming more orthodox, because her willingness to participate in some of those old school ways, like an arranged marriage, starting at a young age. That's going to help her. I thought what's really surprising, because I thought when they introduced this idea that there was going to be a quid pro quo, that the daughter was going to be very resistant, but that's not the case. No. At least as far as we know at the end of season 1. She seems
there's a hint.
There's a hint.
There's a hint via the descriptive audio track. My best friend. The descriptive audio track for Andor.
Okay.
Always reveals little tidbits of information. Things that you can't naturally read on the faces of the characters,
Mm-hmm.
In the descriptive audio track, when Davos Skulden is there with his son and his wife, and they're meeting with with Perrin, Mon, and Lita, The audio descriptive track says Lita is looking upon the boy, barely able to contain her excitement.
Lita glances over her shoulder toward her mother, then gazes ahead with a prim posture while her face exudes an unbridled excitement.
Yeah, baby, it's on.
Wow.
So, yeah, you don't really see that so much. I mean, there's like just subtle, the most subtle little
That
nuance.
kind of makes me feel a little icky, actually. I mean, these are young kids here. What are they, 13? 13 and 14?
Yeah, your daughter's age.
Like that. Oh, my God.
Your daughter's age, Mr. Swank.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, Mon is lucking out, right? But maybe that makes her feel even more guilty because, as he says, in her mind, if I'd have been a better parent, I would have been able to make sure she didn't fall under the spell of those traditions that we've worked very hard to get away from. So
poor Mon.
Yeah, poor Mon. Either way you look at it.
I mean, look what she's doing. Look what she's doing. All the things that bother her, all the things that have caused friction in her life. She is now exploiting her husband's gambling problems, her daughter's adherence to the old Chandrillan ways, which she finds that orthodox approach is ancient and demeaning. She probably feels that way. Mon does, you know. She probably feels like, yeah, that's demeaning. It stripping people of their individuality through arranged marriages and stuff of that nature. Mon doesn't dig it. And her own experience in that area hasn't really provided her with the fulfillment that she wanted. You know, it's apparent that she and Perrin don't see eye to eye on anything. So she's taking those aspects of their personality, the things that bother her the most, and she's making them work for her as she schemes behind the scenes to take down the empire, you know, and fund money toward this rebellion, toward this militia. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yes, she is in deep.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us this week. Thank you all so much for hanging with us as we worked our way through the Bad Batch trailer. No, I don't want to take away any of the excitement. Believe me, I'm just looking forward to new Star Wars dropping every Wednesday. I miss that, you know, get used to it. But when you've been treated to so much, both at the deep end of the pool, as Jimmy was talking about, and the shallow end of the pool. I don't know, Jim, if Andor is the shallow end of the water and Obi-Wan Kenobi is the deep end, where's the Bad Batch?
The Bad Batch is the wave pool. That's where it is. And you just get smacked upside the head with action, excitement, adventure every week.
All right. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. And it's the same as the other pools. Just like all Star Wars, you go in dry, you come out wet.
All right. If you want more Rebel Force Radio in your life and this pithy conversation has inspired you, check it out. Go over to rebelforceradio.com. That's the website. And you go ahead and click on the Patreon banner. And from there, you will be able to select a level of membership that works best for you. And there's all kinds of great things over there. And you can actually peruse. If you could just go over to the podcast tab, you can see all the various podcasts that we produce, including the exclusive shows that are only available when you are a Patreon member. If you say, hey, I want to check out what's going on with that Babu Freaks thing, you can click on that and you can see write-ups, descriptions of all of the Babu Freaks episodes. As a matter of fact, if you go over to the Q&A, one of the latest Q&A episodes here, you can get a free preview. How's that? RFR Q&A number 144, the top 10 Star Wars things that don't matter anymore. Yeah, with Joe Dallas, RFR VIP are there. You can listen to a 10-minute free preview. So there are ways to sort of pre-shop before you commit. By the way, RFR Patreon subscriptions make great Christmas gifts. I don't know. Why not?
Give the gift of RFR.
That's right. But there are a lot of podcasts and content available exclusively through that channel that you can't get, just by firing up the podcast app on your iPhone. So check it out. All those details at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, or as I say, you can go to the Rebel Force Radio website. We're also on YouTube. YouTube continues to grow and be a great way for us to hang out. We love to read your comments on our after shows. It is the exclusive home for our live streams. So check it out. Everything over there at YouTube, the RFR channel, youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. The website, as I mentioned, rebelforceradio.com. If you want to talk to us in between shows, we love to hear your voicemail, 708-320-1737, 708-320-1RFR. Show at rebelforceradio.com is the email address. We're on all of the socials, Facebook. We're not on the TikTok yet. Somebody asked me the other day, are you on TikTok?
Yeah, we are.
We are on TikTok?
Started. We just started on TikTok. It's so new, I didn't even want to promote it yet, but it's true. You will find Rebel Force Radio on TikTok.
All right. Well, follow us over there, I guess.
Yeah. There
RFR
it is.
on TikTok. But we are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We are on Facebook. So you can check us out there. Lots of ways, as I say, you can support the show. We appreciate all of the support, but what we appreciate more than anything is you just being here each and every week, listening to the show and telling your friends about it. If you got that Star Wars friend in the office and they've never heard of Rebel Force Radio, what are you doing? Tell them about it. You're standing around drinking the coffee or the water in the morning. So you got to listen to this great Star Wars podcast. You ever heard of it? Rebel Force Radio. And you can find us streaming 24/7 at Apple Podcasts, iHeart, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, Audible, Pandora, Samsung. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you'll find us at Rebel Force Radio. You'll also find us right back here next week for more great Star Wars conversation. We'd love to have you subscribe to the podcast. It's an easy way to make sure that you get each and every episode. So if your podcatcher of choice allows you to subscribe, please do so. Also, if it allows you to review, we love to have your reviews. We read them all. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
Who was that? All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time right here on Rebel Force Radio. For RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.